Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio. You're listening to us on United Public Radio. And the intro song was I can never get this right without looking at it. Mark of the Doomslayer by Karl Casey at White Bat Audio. All right. Welcome everyone. Tonight our featured presentation is on the Gray Enigma, Abductions, Agendas, and Origin. We're going to talk about the Grays. Since last week, I think that... Hey, how you doing, Jay? Good to see you. Good to see you, Scott. Okay, so we're going to go into, last week we talked about 10 different species, and it did better than I expected, better than like some shows that actually had high profile guests. So I don't get it. So I'm going to run an experiment and try to like go into more detail on each of these particular NHI species or whatever you want to call them using AI, obviously. So if there's anything that seems hallucinated, that's because it probably is. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started, folks. All right. So the Greys. They appear in our cultural imagination as spindly, large-headed figures with blank black eyes, mysterious beings known as the Greys. From chilling abduction narratives to top-secret government dossiers, the Greys have become the iconic face of the UFO phenomenon. In this deep dive, we'll explore how the legend of the Greys emerged and evolved, hear key firsthand quotes from those who claim contact, examine leaked intelligence documents and whistleblower testimonies, and weigh theories about what the Greys really are and what they want. Strap in as we unravel the who, what, and why of the Greys in UFO lore, a journey that spans decades of sightings, secret bases, and speculative science. All right. I'm just getting some of these in. Yeah, it's not very woke. Okay. I should have had well, yeah, I don't think I have a trigger warning on this one. On my usual stuff I typically do. All right. The concept of small gray-skinned aliens didn't start with modern UFO sightings. It has curious antecedents in earlier pop culture and even the occult. As far back as 1893, writer H.G. Wells imagined future humans with enlarged heads and withered bodies, foreshadowing the gray archetype. Occultist Aleister Crowley in 1917 even sketched an entity named Lamb that he claimed to psychically contact. A figure with an oversized bulbous head and tiny vestigial face, remarkably similar to what we now call a gray. In science fiction, a 1933 Swedish novel by Gustav Sandgren portrayed child-sized beings in soft gray suits with bald, big heads and large, dark eyes, a description that became the template upon which the popular image of gray aliens is based. But it wasn't until the mid-20th century that reports of real-life encounters cemented the Greys in UFO folklore. The watershed moment was the Betty and Barney Hill abduction of 1961, the first widely publicized alien abduction case. Under hypnosis, the Hills recalled being taken aboard a flying saucer by gray beings with large eyes, who escorted them into a metallic craft, examined them medically, and then erased their memories. Betty Hill even described a star map shown by the entities, which she later sketched. An amateur astronomer controversially matched it to the Zeta Reticuli binary star system, seeding the idea that the Greys hail from Zeta Reticuli, and then thus earning them the nickname of Zetans or Zeta Reticulans. According to Betty Hill's account, quote, gray beings with large eyes had walked them into a metallic disc as wide as her house was long. Once inside, the gray beings examined the couple and erased their memories. When the Hill story hit newspapers in 1965, it electrified public imagination, introducing the now familiar image of the Greys. Not everyone was convinced it was purely coincidental. One analyst, Martin Kottmeyer, later suggested Barney Hill's description under hypnosis might have been influenced by a sci-fi TV episode featuring a big-eyed alien that had aired just days earlier. Nonetheless, the Hill case became ground zero for the gray alien archetype and eyewitness lure. In its wake, what had been a niche idea of little gray men surged into the mainstream of UFO reports. After the Hills, reports of abductions by Greys skyrocketed. By the 1980s and 90s, thousands of people worldwide claimed eerily similar experiences, waking up to find small gray figures in their bedrooms, being paralyzed or led, sometimes floated into a saucer, undergoing intrusive examinations, and struggling with missing time and amnesia. Research Bud Hopkins notes that virtually all major elements of later abductions, from medical tests to mind control, replicate elements that turned up in that very first case of the Hills. These encounters usually follow a nightmarish but consistent script. Capture. The person is taken from their environment, home, car, etc., often rendered helpless. Essentially, what virtually always happens is the person is paralyzed. They cannot move, explains Hopkins in describing the typical onset. Abductee testimony frequently describes sudden bright lights or buzzing sounds, and then being escorted by 2 to 5 short gray beings onto a craft. Then there's the examination. The abductees report being placed on a table in a round, domed room under bright, diffuse lighting. The Greys conduct procedures akin to a medical exam, taking samples of skin, blood, eggs, or sperm, probing with strange instruments, scanning the body, and sometimes implanting small devices. As one man described in the support group, they removed my eye, and there's this probe that came from the ceiling. Reproductive focus is a common theme. Many female experiencers recall gynecological procedures, and some later dreamed of being shown hybrid infants. Hopkins would later conclude that an ongoing and systematic breeding experiment must be considered one of the central purposes of UFO abductions. Then there's communication. Though the Greys' faces are often described as unmotive, abductees sensed them communicating telepathically. There's rarely spoken sound. Instead, witnesses receive thoughts or commands directly in their mind. For instance, during his close encounter, Barney Hill felt a voice in his head instructing him not to put down his binoculars, even as he stood terror-stricken in front of the UFO. This telepathic control is so intense that it can induce calm or compliance. A voice told him not to run, and he found himself unable to pull the trigger on his gun. Abductees often describe the Greys as emotionless and mentally domineering, able to control human thoughts and paralyze at will. Then there's the aftermath. The encounters end with abductees returned, often in a daze with fuzzy memories. Many experience fragmentary flashbacks or nightmares afterward. Only through hypnosis or years of grappling do detailed narratives emerge. A hallmark of Grey abductions is this enforced amnesia. As one account summarized, the beings examine the couple and erase their memories. When memories do surface, the trauma feels very real. Harvard psychologist John Mack noted the emotional intensity. For me and others, quote, as well as for the abductees themselves, it is this intensity of recovered emotion that lends inescapable authenticity to the phenomenon, end quote. Many experiencers display post-traumatic stress symptoms, yet as Dr. Mack observed, quote, I have never encountered anything similar in psychotic patients suffering from delusions, end quote, underscoring that these people are often otherwise stable. By the numbers, the Greys dominate abduction lore. Rough estimates suggest that 50 to 70% of alien encounter reports, especially in the U.S., feature Grey-type beings. Their visage, the oversized hairless head, pear-shaped black eyes, and diminutive body became the icon of aliens in pop culture. Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1977 cemented the image of small grayish ETs with big heads, a friendly twist on the Greys. And large heads and big eyes, dubbed Greys in UFO circles, became classic sci-fi staples in movies, TV, and books. Unlike the human-like space brothers of 1950s contactee tales, the Greys are generally portrayed as technologically and mentally superior, but cold and inscrutable. Whether they are viewed with fear or fascination, the Greys have become the central characters in the alien abduction drama. So what these beings actually look and act like, according to those who've encountered them. Despite minor variations, eyewitnesses around the world paint a remarkably consistent portrait of Grey physiology. Body. Greys are usually described as small humanoids, 3 to 4 feet tall, with slender, underdeveloped-looking bodies. They typically appear hairless and genderless. No obvious sexual anatomy or muscular definition. Their skin is commonly said to be grayish, hence the name, ranging from ashen white to slate gray or even beige, with a smooth, almost dolphin-like texture. In dim light, they've been mistaken for little green men, but up close, the skin is not green at all. Some reports say the skin has a slight tint or glow, and a faint smell like a burnt match or sulfur is sometimes noted, though this varies. Then there's the head and face. The head is the Grey's most prominent feature, often described as bulbous and oversized relative to the body, with a high domed forehead and no hair. The face has minimalist features, 2 large almond-shaped eyes dominating the upper face, a very small nose, sometimes just nostrils or a slight bump, and a thin slit for a mouth. They are often said to lack visible ears, just small holes or indentations on the sides of the head. The eyes are typically solid black, wraparound or tear-shaped, and slightly slanted. Witness Denise Stoner describing her abductors said, quote, "The most striking physical features are the eyes. They're black, almost liquidy," end quote. She noted the Greys appeared frail and, quote, "like you could hurt them if you were able to, but you're not able to," end quote. Many experiencers echo that the eyes are hypnotically intense. Quote, "All of the power or energy or force really resides in the eyes," end quote. Bud Hopkins explains, quote, "The body has no tensile strength at all, but the eyes are very powerful and controlling," end quote. This eye-to-eye contact often induces profound terror or a sense of being mentally overpowered. Greys are almost never seen to speak or change expression. Their small mouths don't move. Some say the mouth is just a narrow slit or not a functional orifice at all. When they do communicate, it's through the aforementioned telepathy or simple gestures. Limbs and movement. Greys have long, thin arms reaching to their knees or lower, with 3 or 4 long fingers. Reports differ on whether there is a thumb. Their fingers are often tipped with talcum pale skin or slight webbing. They don't seem strong. In fact, witnesses often remark how weak or scrawny the Greys look. Yet they move and handle humans with surprising ease, suggesting they have ways to immobilize or lift heavy weight, perhaps via technology. Their gait is sometimes described as oddly mechanical or graceful. Some claim the beings float rather than walk normally. They frequently appear in groups acting in unison, almost like an ant colony or a hive mind. Individual personalities are hard to discern. Attire. Interestingly, not all Greys are reported naked. A number of abduction reports say the beings wear tight-fitting uniforms or bodysuits of a thin, seamless material, usually in neutral colors like silver, white, or pale blue. Barney Hill recalled seeing the occupants of the UFO wearing glossy black uniforms and hats in the windows of the craft, though his recollection was fragmentary. Other cases describe simple one-piece suits with high collars. In other encounters, people don't recall any clothing at all. The Greys' bodies are uniformly colored and plain. This discrepancy might be due to different groups of Greys or varying observer memory. Their behavior is emotionally detached, and that's the phrase that comes up often. Experiencers say the Greys display little to no empathy during procedures. They perform tasks with a calm, methodical precision, often ignoring human pleas or panic. Some witnesses remark they were like cold, computer-like intelligences, utterly beyond human emotion. It's common for abductees to describe feeling like the Greys regard them as specimens or lab animals. The Greys do what they came to do and then depart. However, there are also reports of Greys gently calming abductees or even befriending child experiencers. In a few cases, often from contactees who claim ongoing friendly contact rather than abductions, Greys are said to impart messages or show concern for humanity's future. Generally, though, they come off as alien in every sense, highly intelligent but inhumanly detached. Their technology seems advanced yet subtle. Small handheld devices that scan bodies, floating gurneys, or beams of light that levitate people in rooms with no obvious source of light or seams. Betty Hill recalled one gray pulling out her teeth, dentures, to check why her removable to check to check her removable false teeth, whereas Barney's wouldn't come out, suggesting a curiosity about human biology, but ignorance of some details. Such anecdotes imply the Greys can be puzzled by aspects of human life, like dentistry, even as they easily wipe memories and traverse space. This duality fuels theories that perhaps the Greys themselves are just technicians or clones for a higher intelligence. Despite their small size, those piercing black eyes and strange abilities give the Greys an overwhelming presence in their encounters. Many abductees describe a profound sense of otherness in their proximity, a feeling that these beings are ancient, sophisticated, and utterly foreign in mindset. As author Whitley Strieber wrote of his own close encounter, quote, "Whomever or whatever the visitors are, their activities go far beyond a mere study of mankind. They are involved with us on very deep levels, playing in the boundary of dream and reality," end quote. In short, the physiology and behavior of the Greys, as reported, suggest creatures that are humanoid but not human, perhaps a blend of biological and technological, operating with an agenda and psychology that remains enigmatic. Then there's the government side. Government files, leaks, and legends, the shadowy side. Beyond personal abduction stories, the legend of the Greys is entangled with claims of government cover-ups and leaked intelligence about extraterrestrials. Now we're going to explore a few famous and infamous pieces of that puzzle and ways how credible these anecdotes are. So we'll start with Majestic 12 in Roswell. No discussion of aliens and government secrecy is complete without Roswell. In 1947, something crashed in the New Mexico desert. The Army Air Force said it was a weather balloon, but conspiracies later claimed it was an alien saucer with recovered gray alien bodies. Those rumors stayed relatively quiet until the 1980s when a bombshell set of documents surfaced, the Majestic 12 or MJ-12 papers. These purported top-secret memos alleged high-level government panel, Majestic 12, was formed in 1947 to handle extraterrestrial affairs, including the Roswell crash retrieval. The MJ-12 documents described 4 small human-like beings found at Roswell with large heads and slanted eyes, fitting the classic gray description, though notably the term gray wasn't used in the documents. If true, it would be explosive proof that grays are real and known to our government. However, MJ-12's credibility is highly suspect. As UFO historian Jerome Clark notes, upon release in 1987, the documents sparked massive controversy, and for various technical reasons, most investigators agree that the MJ-12 document is a forgery. Even the FBI, after analysis, concluded the MJ-12 papers were completely bogus. They even investigated who faked it. The consensus is that the MJ-12 was likely a hoax or disinformation, albeit one possibly conceived by someone with insider knowledge of UFO lore. No official verification of MJ-12 has ever emerged. Still, the MJ-12 saga popularized the idea that the U.S. government knows about the Greys, recovered their craft, and is hiding the truth, a theme that would reappear often. Interestingly, during the same period, witnesses from Roswell finally started speaking out. In the late 1970s and 80s, several elderly ex-military personnel claimed they saw alien bodies in 1947, unusually proportioned, bald, child-sized beings with oversized heads and slanted eyes. As one account summarized. These descriptions closely match what Barney and Betty Hill and others later reported encountering. Could it be that Roswell's creatures were Greys all along? It's tantalizing, but without official confirmation, we're in the realm of hearsay and leaked or fabricated memos. Then we're on to the Dulce base mythos. Another durable legend is that the Greys aren't just visiting from space. They might be living here, deep underground, in collusion with shadowy government elements. The prime example is the tale of Dulce Base. Dulce is a small town in northern New Mexico that, according to conspiracy lore, sits atop a massive underground facility jointly run by aliens and a clandestine agency. Starting in the late 1970s, rumors spread of UFOs seen around Dulce and bizarre cattle mutilations in the area. A state trooper, Gabe Valdez, investigated and found strange chemicals and even a peculiar fetus-like blob inside a cow. Like a human, a monkey, and a frog, he said, speculating it might be a genetic experiment or alien embryo. These weird findings fed the idea that someone underground was harvesting cattle parts for biotech research. By the 1980s, a physicist named Paul Benowitz became convinced he was intercepting electronic signals from an underground alien base near Dulce. He spread alarming reports of this base. The narrative really took shape when Phil Schneider, a former explosives engineer, came forward in the 1990s with a dramatic personal story. He claimed that in 1979 he was working on a secret subterranean project at Dulce when security forces encountered Greys in the tunnels. A firefight allegedly ensued, a battle with subterranean aliens that left 60 humans dead, and Schneider himself injured. According to Schneider, the Dulce War is ongoing to this day in the deeper levels of the base. He and others have described Dulce Base as a multi-level laboratory where Greys and possibly other alien species conduct horrifying experiments like creating human-alien hybrids, cloning, and mind control, sometimes in cooperation and other times conflict with human scientists. It's a sensational story, a secret, high-tech world filled with aliens. Even the sight of alien wars, as one tongue-in-cheek summary put it. But what's the evidence? Despite decades of speculation, no concrete proof of Dulce Base exists. The tale has the hallmarks of modern myth. It began with genuine strange observations, UFOs and cattle mutilations, got embellished by conjecture, Benowitz's signals, and exploded into full-blown legend with Schneider's unverified testimony. Many ufologists suspected parts of the Dulce story were fueled by disinformation. Benowitz, for instance, was fed false UFO data by Air Force intelligence, ostensibly to throw him off sensitive Cold War projects, which may have worsened his paranoia. Schneider's claims, meanwhile, are extremely hard to verify, and he died under murky circumstances, which only added to conspiracy fervor. In the end, Dulce Base remains an unproven conspiracy theory, albeit a famous one in UFO circles. It contributes to the image of the Greys as possibly sinister beings doing secret experiments on Earth, a step just beyond abducting people. Here, they may be running whole facilities. Mainstream researchers remain highly skeptical, noting the lack of physical evidence and the fantastical nature of the claims. But true or not, Dulce has become UFO legend, referenced in TV shows, books, and fueling countless late-night AM radio discussions about alien underground bases. Fast forward to the present, and the topic of UFOs, now often termed UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, has re-entered the spotlight, this time in government hearings. In 2023, a former U.S. intelligence officer named David Grush made headlines by testifying to Congress that the government possesses non-human craft and even non-human biologics from crash sites. Grush, who worked on a Pentagon UAP task force, stated under oath that a secret crash retrieval and reverse engineering program has been operating for decades, hidden from oversight. When asked if we had recovered alien pilots or bodies, he responded, "Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yes. Non-human biologics," implying alien beings were retrieved. This stunning claim sounded like the MJ-12 story revived for a new era, except here was a credentialed officer speaking to Congress, not an anonymous document. Grush also asserted he could point the authorities to the exact locations of these secret programs and materials. His testimony gave new fuel to believers that the Greys or some non-human entities are real and hidden behind classified doors. In fact, it led to serious calls for greater government transparency on UAPs. However, skeptics urged caution. Grush admitted that he never personally saw the alien bodies or craft. His knowledge is secondhand, based on interviews with others in the know. Essentially, he is a whistleblower, relaying what insider colleagues told him. The Pentagon firmly denied his claims, with the Defense Department spokesperson stating they found no verifiable information of any such alien programs after checking. As of this writing, Grush has provided no physical evidence to the public, no photos, documents, or materials due to the information's classified nature. So while his testimony is intriguing and he's taken significant personal risks suggesting he believes what he's saying, we are left again with extraordinary claims without hard proof. Other recent informants and declassified files have added pieces to the puzzle. Navy pilot reports of Tic Tac-shaped craft with incredible capabilities, though no occupants seen. The Pentagon's acknowledgement of investigating UAP videos, etc. But details of biological entities remain scant in official channels. Grush's assertion of non-human biologics is one of the first in a governmental forum. It hints that if Greys or aliens exist, some people in government might know more than they publicly let on. Whether that will be confirmed or remain another unproven claim is the big question. And then, of course, you have the recent comments from Eric Davis in Congress on the Luna panel, where he admitted to there being 4 known races, one of which was the Greys. In summary, the shadow side of the Grey phenomenon, from Majestic 12 to Dulce to modern whistleblowers, is a mix of tantalizing hints and dubious claims. Some of these stories, like MJ12, have been largely debunked, while others, like Grush's testimony, are still unfolding. Credible proof remains elusive, yet these narratives greatly influence how we view the Greys. Are they real entities our leaders are hiding? Are they mythic scapegoats in a grand conspiracy? One thing is certain: the mythos of government-hidden Greys has become an integral part of UFO lore, adding a layer of intrigue and paranoia to the basic abduction tales. It elevates the Greys from late-night bedroom visitors to players in a cosmic and political drama. Over the past several decades, a number of dedicated researchers and experiencers have tried to unravel the mystery of the Greys. Here we highlight viewpoints from 4 key figures: Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, John Mack, and Whitley Strieber, each of whom spent years studying abduction phenomena or living it, and each developed his own interpretation of who the Greys are and what they're up to. Their perspectives sometimes conflict, offering a spectrum from deeply alarming to spiritually transformative. Let's start with Bud Hopkins in his book, The Intruders. An artist turned ufologist, Bud Hopkins was among the first to seriously investigate and document alien abductions. Beginning in the late 1970s, he conducted hundreds of interviews and hypnosis sessions with experiencers. Hopkins took a literal, physical view of abductions. Real aliens were kidnapping humans for some kind of program. By the mid-1980s, he zeroed in on a startling pattern. Abductees, especially women, described reproductive procedures and even presentation of hybrid offspring. In his influential book, Intruders, 1987, Hopkins concluded that the Greys are running a long-term breeding experiment using human genetic material. He says, quote, all three women had either dreams or recollections of being shown tiny offspring who are not completely human. They are in fact hybrids. Unthinkable. Yet the evidence points in that direction. An ongoing and systematic breeding experiment must be considered one of the central purposes of UFO abductions. Hopkins writes emphatically. This quote encapsulates his view. The Greys have a genetic agenda, likely trying to create a human-alien hybrid race. But why? Hopkins cautiously speculated it might be to propagate their species, if they are dying out or sterile, as some abductees were told, or to adapt to our environment. He generally refrained from wild conjecture beyond what his case evidence showed. To Hopkins, the Greys were not benevolent. Their treatment of humans was often traumatic, but he also noted they didn't seem to outright kill or seriously harm their captives long term. He described them as emotionally detached experimenters. Hopkins' work brought legitimacy to abductee testimonies and set the stage for others. Then there's David Jacobs. They're taking over. A history professor turned UFO researcher, Dr. David Jacobs, worked closely with Hopkins and took the hybrid concept even further into a dire hypothesis. Jacobs conducted hundreds of hypnotic regressions himself and authored books like Secret Life and The Threat. His conclusion: The Greys' hybridization program has a clandestine goal of subjugating humanity. Jacobs believed the Greys and their hybrid offspring are integrating into human society in order to eventually replace us or control us. There's an alien threat, he warns. The aliens are going to take over. They plan to replace us with alien-human hybrids. According to Jacobs, abductees have reported multiple generations of hybrids, some nearly indistinguishable from humans, being trained to live among us. In his view, breeding hybrids isn't just experimentation. It's the center of their plan. Jacobs paints the Greys as ruthlessly efficient invaders who see us as a resource. He often compares their tactics to a covert colonization happening gradually under our noses. It's a very dark interpretation, one that has been criticized even within ufology for possibly inducing fear in vulnerable experiencers. But Jacobs insists he's drawing logical conclusions from the consistency of abduction accounts. He notes the Greys repeatedly tell abductees to interact with hybrid children, to not forget them, almost as if preparing humans to accept these hybrids. He posits a future where hybrids could live on Earth and humans become second class or irrelevant. While unsettling, Jacobs' perspective cannot be easily dismissed given the data he's collected, though many argue there's no external proof of hybrids at large. His work stands at the extreme end of the spectrum. Greys is a hostile existential threat. Then there's John Mack, who sees them as a transformative mystery. Excuse me. Dr. John Mack was a Pulitzer Prize-winning psychiatrist from Harvard who took a very different approach. In the 1990s, Mack interviewed over 100 abductees, whom he preferred to call experiencers. He acknowledged the literal aspects of their story, but was more intrigued by the spiritual and psychological dimensions. Mack noticed many abductees underwent profound changes in worldview, describing new ecological or spiritual insights after their encounters. Rather than seeing Greys purely as invaders or scientists, Mack entertained that they might operate on a mythic or interdimensional plane as much as the physical. One of Mack's patients, Ava, felt that, quote, the abduction experience is a mechanism to remove structures that impede the reconnection with source, end quote. In Mack's book, Abduction, Ava suggests that through these trials, experiencers awaken to a larger reality, shedding ego and spreading knowledge. Mack himself didn't claim to know the being's true intent, but he argued the phenomenon challenges our concept of reality. He wrote, there's a core belief in our culture that is violated by the alien abduction phenomenon, namely the total separation of the spiritual and the physical. This phenomenon mixes the two. Mack often speculated the Greys could be emissaries of a deeper consciousness, forcing us to evolve even if on the surface they act in ways that mimic trauma or absurdity. That said, Mack didn't view it all through rose-colored glasses. He recognized the genuine fear and suffering people reported. He simply noted that many also eventually felt a sense of mission or personal growth. Mack's perspective can be summarized as open-minded and exploratory. The Greys might not be just aliens from Zeta Reticuli, but something far stranger that engages human transformation. His work lent abduction research credibility by framing it as a valid subject for psychological study, and he bravely faced academic criticism for it. And there's Whitley Strieber, and quote, Communication with the Unknown. Whitley Strieber is an author who claims a lifetime of encounters with the visitors. In 1987, his 1987 nonfiction book Communion put a human face on the abduction experience, describing in novelistic detail his terror and wonder at what happened to him at a cabin in 1985. Strieber's contribution is the experiencer's inner perspective. He delves into the emotional and philosophical impact of contact. Notably, Strieber avoids definitively labeling the Greys as extraterrestrials. He calls them the visitors to allow that they might be aliens, spirits, interdimensional travelers, or something we can't yet imagine. Their activities go far beyond a mere study of mankind, Strieber writes. They are involved with us on very deep levels, weaving imagination and reality together to perceive the visitors adequately. It may be necessary to invent a new discipline of vision. In Straber's view, the phenomenon spans dream, myth, and physical reality. He recounts agonizing medical procedures by the Greys, yet also strangely beautiful experiences like telepathic dialogues about the fate of the soul. In later writings, such as Transformation and The Secret School, he muses that the visitors might be educating us or even feeding off of our emotions in some symbiotic way. At times, Strieber wondered if the Greys have been with humanity throughout history, appearing as fairies or spirits in earlier eras, a nod to Jacques Vallée's idea of shape-shifting messengers. Whitley's personal journey swung from abject fear — he initially thought his 1985 abduction was demonic — to a kind of acceptance. He famously wrote, quote, "I got the feeling I was not a victim, but part of a profoundly important arrangement," end quote. His perspective, while hard to pin down, is that the Greys represent an unknown intelligence that challenges us to broaden our reality. He doesn't dismiss darker interpretations. He lived through trauma, but he ultimately seeks meaning in the experiences. Strieber's honest, often bewildered accounts have resonated with many experiencers who feel neither purely victims nor chosen prophets, but something in between. These four figures only scratch the surface. Other researchers like Jacques Vallée or Carla Turner, or experiencers like Betty Andreasen, have their own insights. Vallée leans toward interdimensional. Turner warned of deception. Andreasen found a biblical spiritual context. But Hopkins, Jacobs, Mack, and Strieber illustrate the range of interpretation. Hopkins and Jacobs see concrete aliens doing concrete things, with Jacobs sounding the alarm of an existential threat. Mack and Strieber see a deeper mystery that might even be beneficial or evolutionary in the long run, albeit perplexing and possibly harsh in method. Interestingly, all of them agree that something profoundly strange is happening to people and that the Greys are at the center of it. Whether they are invaders, caretakers, or cosmic tricksters remains an open question, and one that each researcher answers differently. As listeners, we're reminded that any theory about the Greys says as much about us, our fears, hopes, and paradigms as it does about the beings. All right, let's take a break. Let me go through some of the comments. Sorry to power through all that, but I needed to make sure I made some progress before I step back for a moment. Okay, man, you guys have a lot. All right, here we go. Hillbilly Herb is asking, are the Greys Crowley's lamb? It could be. That. Yeah, Jay. They could be if they're from that area. Skinny Bob. I'm cold. Jonathan Doman is saying, great show. Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, Fast Mama Jama is saying, wow, that sounds like the Brazilian aliens. Could be. Roger Claiborne, Venusian refugees. Yeah, it could be. Jay's asking any data on why the eyes are jet black. It could be that those are just like lenses, like some sort of advanced sunglasses. It could be that they're used to living in space, so they, you know, it could be that they're used to living in darker environments, i.e., underground, right? So, good question though. All right, sorry, I'm just going to try to speed through. Yeah, I didn't even get into like short and tall Greys. I think that the lore seems to point that to the short Greys as being biological androids and hence emotionless, whereas the tall tend to have some emotions. But Jay's saying here, I definitely believe that they do make strong friendships with some of the abductees, contactees. Okay, so Fast Mama Gemma saying Whitney was on Psychoactivo. He said he is only telepathic with Greys. He's not allowed to be telepathic with humans. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm just speed reading through some of these, so just bear with me. Tribble Nubbins is writing, wearing a turtleneck is like spending the day getting strangled by Skinny Bob. Okay. Hold on. Some freaking idiot in my house is playing like copyrighted music. So I gotta stop for a moment. Bear with me. Oh, sorry about that. And even it was on mute because it automatically. Let's see. Now I lost my place. Yeah, I think we're talking about Phil Snyder. Yeah, I think Phil Schneider is iffy. Sorry, folks. I'm just trying to get through this relatively quickly. That's possible. I'm cold saying I do think there's people who lack empathy and any moral morality could be hybrids. Interesting. Fast Mama Jama saying his aunt worked with John Mack. Yeah, could be. Intercold or I'm cold is writing. What Nathaniel Gillis always talks about is about the archons. Museum of Tarot on. I gotta find. Yeah, I gotta follow up with that. Hey Joe Fox, good to see you. Fast Mama Jama writes, automatic writing is the first step in psychic classes. I don't doubt that. Would it? That's it. You asked. So Fast Mama Jama is writing. I asked Paul Willis if automatic writing was bad. What did he say? I'm curious, actually. JB's writes, I don't think automatic writing is all that good. Nice to study, but when unconscious and allow that stuff to come through you, you should be able to be conscious while in a trance state. Huh. Paul Willis said to me, automatic tooling is automatic writing is a tool that he uses, Shasmam Jama says. Yeah, J. Paul, you could be right. We could already be the hybrids. There are voluminous comments. Hey, Jesse, good to see you. Did anyone die? Almost. Almost. Unreal. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's get back to it. All right. So, what do the Greys want? Theories and motives. If the Greys are real entities interacting with humans, the $1,000,000 question is why? What is their motive? Over the years, several leading theories have emerged, drawn from patterns and abduction accounts and the narratives discussed. Here we examine the main ideas about the Greys' possible agenda, from harvesting genetics to harvesting souls. Keeping in mind these are speculative and not mutually exclusive, the truth could involve multiple motives or something entirely unknown. So, one motive could be genetic harvesting and hybridization. The most prevalent theory, supported by Hopkins, Jacobs, and many others, is that the Greys are collecting human genetic material to create hybrids or to otherwise bolster their own biology. The evidence lies in the abduction reports. Time and again, people recall reproductive procedures, ova removal, sperm extraction, embryonic implants, and sometimes even the presentation of hybrid offspring, often described as thin, with larger eyes than a human infant, and somewhat frail. It appears the Greys have difficulty reproducing or lack some genetic component that humans have. In Bud Hopkins' words, the consistency of these accounts forces us to consider that a systematic breeding experiment is underway. Why hybrids? One idea is the Grey species is dying due to radiation, cloning errors, or evolutionary dead end, and they need fresh DNA to revitalize it. Another is they wish to adapt to Earth's environment by blending with humans, essentially to eventually live here openly. Dr. David Jacobs infamously argues the latter. The hybrids are being made to supplant us, not just to save them. A less apocalyptic twist is that the Greys are simply scientists furthering their understanding of genetics, akin how we might study animals through breeding programs, but on a cosmic scale. In any case, the hybridization motive casts the Greys as intensely interested in our reproductive systems and hereditary traits. Some abductees even report being told by the Greys that this is for a greater purpose. We are linked, implying humans might somehow benefit or that it's a joint venture, perhaps preserving both species by combining them. It's worth noting that hybrid tales also dovetail into ancient astronaut lore, the idea that aliens tinkered with human DNA in prehistory. So, for example, Sumerian myths of the Anunnaki. Could the current abductions be a continuation of an eons old genetic relationship? That's speculative, but it shows the appeal of the hybrid theory in explaining not just abductions, but possibly human origins. From a motive standpoint, genetic survival, theirs, ours, or both, is a strong contender for what the Greys do what they do, or for why the Greys do what they do. It could also be scientific study or human experimentation. A more straightforward motive could be that the Greys are simply studying us, performing what we call wildlife capture and release. In this view, the Greys might be galactic anthropologists or biologists cataloging Earth species, including humans, by taking samples and conducting exams. Indeed, many abduction scenarios resemble scientific fieldwork. The subjects are temporarily incapacitated, measured, tested, then released with minimum long-term harm, aside from psychological trauma. The Greys often show interest in basic physiological functions, like the Betty Hill dentures episode or scans of organs, which might be routine data gathering. They also often take environmental samples. People have reported the Greys collecting plants or animal tissue during abductions. If they come from another world, humans might simply fascinate them as specimens. Some experiencers have been given vague warnings about ecological damage or nuclear war, almost as if the Greys were evaluating our fitness as a civilization. This scientist motive casts the Greys as curious but uncaring observers. We might be as ants to them, worth study but not worth deeply empathizing with. This aligns with their behavior of calm detachment. It's not mutually exclusive with other motives. Perhaps they are studying us while also using our DNA. The difference is in intent. Are they just learning or actively manipulating? The study hypothesis leans toward non-interference because beyond the abductions themselves. Critiques of this idea ask, if purely study, why the secrecy and memory wipes? Perhaps they deem it necessary to avoid disrupting our natural behavior, much like wildfire taggers try to minimize stress on animals and not interfere with their ecosystem too much. Then there's resource extraction beyond genetics. Some theories propose the Greys might be here to harvest other resources. One fringe claim is that they use biological substances from humans and animals for sustenance or medicine. Cattle mutilations lore, for example, suggests someone is taking bovine organs and blood, possibly for nutrients. Certain abductees have reported the Greys taking fluids from their bodies or even absorbing perspiration or energy somehow. One extreme idea proposed by Nigel Kerner is that the Greys are trying to capture the human soul or life essence because they themselves lost their spiritual aspect and became overly technological. This soul harvesting theory is highly speculative, but Strieber and others have noted a strange interest in human souls or death in some encounters. Strieber wrote of an experience hinting at using humans as using the human soul in machines, which is very eerie. It's hard to substantiate, but a few experiencers claim the beings showed them images of souls leaving bodies or spoke about the force in humans that doesn't die. If one takes a step into metaphysics, perhaps the Greys want something intangible we possess: creativity, emotional range, or spiritual energy. This overlaps with the idea that they manipulate human consciousness. For instance, the way they induce visions or screen memories could mean they consume emotional responses or gain knowledge through us. Again, solid evidence is lacking. This is derived from interpretive and often subjective reports. Nonetheless, the resource extraction motive positions the Greys as takers of something, whether it's DNA, bodily fluids, or psychic energy that they need for themselves. Depending on who you ask, that makes them either parasitic or just trying to survive via what we can provide. Another motive could be control and influence. And this is often inferred, not necessarily full conquest as Jacobs fears, but a subtler influence over humanity. The Greys' telepathic abilities and advanced tech could allow them to sway individuals or gather intelligence. Some abductees even report being given tasks or programmed with certain triggers. These accounts are controversial. If the Greys have been visiting for decades or centuries, they may have an interest in guiding human evolution or behavior. The motives here could be paternalistic, guiding us away from self-destruction, as some contactees claim. For instance, being shown horrific images of environmental collapse as a warning, or more sinister, conditioning us for their later use. There's speculation about hybrid agents living among us in Jacob's view, which implies a motive to infiltrate and steer humanity from within. Even without hybrids, the notion that they erase memories and choose not to reveal themselves suggests they prefer humans not fully aware, possibly to avoid panic or resistance. If they wanted to overtly conquer, presumably they could attempt it. The fact that they operate in the shadows might mean they intend a long-term influence strategy. For example, some abductees come back with a profound sense of urgency about environmental causes or spirituality, almost as if they've been subtly nudged to promote certain views. This is how John Mack started seeing a pattern of environmental concern among his patients. Could the Greys be quietly nudging our society in certain directions? It's conjecture, but can't be ruled out by the abduction evidence alone. The control motive spans from controlling individual minds during abduction and possibly beyond to potentially steering the course of civilization. On the light end, it overlaps with the idea of them helping us avoid disaster. On the dark end, it dovetails with colonization, controlling us for their benefit. Then they might have transcendence or a spiritual agenda. In contrast to the material motives above, some interpreters, often experiencers themselves, believe the grays have a transcendent purpose, something to do with the evolution of consciousness of the soul. We touched on this with Mac's work. Perhaps the encounters are meant to break us out of our limited reality. If so, the frightening medical procedures might be a kind of initiation or test. The notion of communion, which is Strieber's term, implies a two-way relationship that could be ultimately meaningful. A few abductees have essentially said the grays are here to teach us, albeit in a strange, very strange, sometimes traumatic manner, about our place in a larger cosmic community. In this framing, the motives might include awakening psychic abilities, as some people report heightened intuition or unexplained skills after encounters, or even creating a hybrid bridge between species to better connect two worlds. It's almost a mystical interpretation. The grays as agents of universal evolution, helping usher humanity to the next step, perhaps a mix of biological and spiritual advancement. It's admittedly hard to reconcile this benevolent, lofty motive with the often cold, scary experience of abductions. Some experiencers resolve it by suggesting the grays don't feel emotion like we do, so they appear cruel, but they might not understand our pain while pursuing the goal that they consider positive or necessary. Others think there may be different factions of grays, some more benevolent, some more self-serving, which complicates ascribing a single motive. In reality, we don't know what drives the grays. All these theories are attempts to connect the dots of what little we observe. It could be one or all of the above. For instance, a comprehensive scenario might be the grays are a dying alien race, genetic motive, who come here to harvest DNA, resource motive, and create hybrids that can live on Earth, hybridization, and perhaps subtly integrate, control motive. In doing so, they study us intensely, scientific study, and the very process of contact ends up jolting human consciousness' spiritual agenda. That's a lot, but it illustrates how entwined these ideas can get. One must also consider maybe we are projecting human emotions onto aliens. Their true purpose could be something our minds haven't even considered. As author Arthur C. Clarke famously said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Likewise, any sufficiently advanced motive might be indistinguishable from madness or miracle to us. The Gray's endgame might be as beyond our comprehension as calculus is to a cat. However, based on what experiencers tell us, the genetic hybridization motive has the most concrete support, followed by a general scientific study motive. The more esoteric ideas, souls, spiritual guidance, come mainly through interpretation of less tangible aspects of encounters like messages or visions. The control infiltration motive is argued by some researchers, but is harder to see directly. It's inferred from the secrecy and impossible presence of hybrids among us. In our narrative arc, at least, the Greys' motives remain the ultimate mystery to be solved. Are they farmers and we are the crop, scientists and we the lab rats, saviors and we the protégés, or something far stranger? Dream weavers playing with our reality. The lack of a clear answer keeps us riveted and perhaps a bit uneasy, which might itself be part of the reason the Grey enigma endures. All right. Origin and nature. What are the Greys? We've explored how Greys act and what they want, but where do they come from? And what even are they fundamentally? UFO researchers and experiencers have proposed a range of theories about the origin and nature of the Greys. Initially, the assumption was straightforward. They are biological extraterrestrials from another star system. However, as more data and conjecture accumulated, alternative theories arose, including interdimensional beings, time-traveling humans, artificial intelligence, and even constructs in a simulation. Let's break down the leading ideas. Extraterrestrial biological entities, EBEs. This is the classic view. The Greys are aliens from another planet. likely a planet orbiting Zeta Reticuli, which is a binary star system about 39 light years away, since that's what Betty Hill's star map pointed to. They arrived in UFOs, perhaps crashing at Roswell, and have been conducting operations here. Under this hypothesis, they're flesh and blood creatures, albeit with different biology, who evolved in another world with perhaps lower light, hence big eyes, or a different environment. Their technology lets them traverse space, possibly through warp drive, wormholes, etc. Many abduction accounts even have the Greys showing star maps or saying they have come from a place near Orion or the Reticulum, though such claims are hard to verify and could be misinformation. The EBE hypothesis is compelling because it fits well with the narrative that they're intelligent beings visiting Earth, much like we might visit another planet if we could and do experiments on the local fauna. It's also supported by physical evidence like alleged UFO radar tracks and landing traces. If the Greys are ETs, one could imagine there are Grey civilizations out there, possibly with different castes or variations. Some reports speak of taller Greys overseeing the short worker Greys. Their interest in us might be scientific or colonial. And then in terms of credibility, while there's no definitive truth of extraterrestrial origin, this remains the default assumption in ufology. And even in recent UAP discussions, the implication is not of this Earth. As one writer quipped, the great distances covered by visiting aliens may be ones of space. The Greys could simply be our cosmic neighbors who found a way to bridge the interstellar gulf. This idea certainly captures the popular imagination, hence so many sci-fi depictions of Greys on spaceships. But it also raises the Fermi paradox question. If they got here, why don't they make open contact? That loops back to their possible motives and suggests they don't want overt relations, which is consistent with abduction secrecy. All right, another potential is that they're artificial beings, clones, or AI. A twist on the ET hypothesis is that the Greys might not be the real aliens, but rather biologically engineered robots or clones sent to do the dirty work. Several abductees have remarked that the Greys acted like hive-minded drones and sometimes seemed dispassionate like robots. Could they be a form of artificial intelligence? Perhaps an alien species created the Greys as tools, or the Greys themselves became cybernetic over time. Their consistent appearance, little variation in features, might hint at cloning. Some accounts even describe a chemical or machine-like odor around them, contributing to the notion that they are manufactured. If true, the masters behind them might be elsewhere. Some conspiracy lore suggests tall humanoid aliens or even reptilian beings using Greys as biodrones. But we were told not to compare with other alien types, so we digress. Right? So we're not going to talk about other alien types. Seeing Greys as AI avatars could explain their lack of empathy and possibly their need for human biological material. If they are clones, maybe they need fresh DNA to prevent degradation, etc. It also explains how they handle dangerous tasks like face-to-face abduction. Their makers can risk them. Interestingly, Whitley Strieber once speculated that the Greys might be soulless containers or even the dead. In what a very out there musing, he wondered if they were some kind of vessel for consciousness. While that's metaphysical, it resonates with the idea that they are empty shells directed by something else. On a more practical level, some UFO reports mention small robotic probes and different types of Greys. Some shorter ones seem subordinate, while a few cases describe a taller Grey that communicates while the short ones do grunt work. This hierarchy can mean the short Greys are an artificial worker class. So the Greys just robots? Not exactly. They appear organic, but they could be a form of biotech, living but lab-grown for specific functions, perhaps with cybernetic enhancements. If so, their origin is still extraterrestrial. Someone out there made them. Another angle, maybe the Greys are the original species, but through millennia or self-modification and cloning, they became a kind of partially artificial life form, having sacrificed emotion and diversity for longevity and efficiency. Another theory is that they are time travelers or future humans. Just a second here. One provocative theory gaining traction is that the Greys are not aliens at all. They are us from the future. Proponents like anthropologist Dr. Michael Masters, also interviewed on Through a Glass Darkly, argue that many features of Greys, upright posture, reduced body hair, larger craniums, could be the result of human evolution in tens of thousands of years. Consider that over the last few million years, human skull and brain size expanded and our bodies and faces gracilized, became smoother, less robust. If that trend continued, future humans might have big brains, slender bodies, and smaller facial features, resembling Greys. Add to that the possibility of genetic engineering. Future humans might tweak themselves to adapt to lower light or zero G, leading to large eyes and small noses, and the similarities grow. Masters points out that close encounter witnesses describe entities that are bipedal, humanoid, with technology that's advanced but comprehensible, not magical. The Greys also breathe our air. Abductees don't report them wearing space helmets usually, and can eat or drink human substances, which can imply they are from Earth originally. The time travel hypothesis suggests that these beings come from a distant future and are possibly visiting us for anthropological or genetic reasons. Perhaps in their time, humans have issues like reproductive problems or genetic diseases, and they found a way to travel to the past, our present, to retrieve fresh genetic material, which is basically the hybrid program in a new light. This would mean the hybrids are attempts to reinvigorate their population by mixing with earlier humans. It could also mean that they are studying their own past. Imagine if we could go back and study Neanderthals directly. Would we do some secret kidnappings for science? Perhaps. As crazy as time travel sounds, some scientists consider it at least theoretically possible under general relativity. And a respected journalist, Leonard David, wrote about this idea. He summarized that the great distances aliens traverse might actually be distances in time and not space. One of Masters' arguments for parsimony: we know humans exist. We know we get more technologically advanced. The simplest explanation may be that it is us coming back. If the Greys are future humans, their motives could align with either pure research, studying ancestors, or species preservation, correcting a future crisis. It also casts an interesting light on their avoidance of overt contact, a classic time traveler's rule not to disrupt the timeline too much. This theory remains speculative, but it's interesting because it would explain the deep anthropomorphism of the Greys and their genetic focus. It blurs the line between alien and human in a literal way. Okay, then there's ultra-terrestrials or interdimensionals. Introduced by thinkers like John Keel and Jacques Vallée, this hypothesis posits that the Greys are neither from our outer space nor our future, but from another level of reality that coexists with ours. Keel coined the term ultra-terrestrials to describe entities that might have been on Earth all along, unseen, possibly in another dimension or frequency. Vallée pointed out that folklore across cultures, fairies, goblins, jinn, features small beings doing things like abductions or altering perception, perhaps the same phenomenon as UFO abductions, wearing a different mask. The idea here is that the Greys could be manifestations of a higher dimensional intelligence that for whatever reason takes a form we interpret as alien. Maybe they had dropped the Grey form only in the last century as we began thinking in sci-fi terms. This would mean the familiar Grey is partly a projection, something our minds or they co-create. Some support for this comes from the high strangeness of many UFO encounters, which often include surreal, nonsensical elements like time loops or people receiving psychic messages. Even Whitley Strieber mused that the visitors might not be alien at all, but rather right here, only just out of view of our normal perception. If the Greys are ultra-terrestrial, their origin could be Earth, but in a different vibrational plane, or they might come through portals from a parallel universe. This could explain their ability to appear and vanish, pass through walls, and why definitive physical evidence is scant. They may not be fully physical by our standards. Their motive could be more mystical, studying or interacting with our consciousness as some kind of custodial force or even a symbiotic relationship. The ultra-terrestrial theory often portrays these beings as trickster-like, sometimes helpful, sometimes deceptive, which aligns with the mixed experiences abductees report. Some get spiritual insights, some get trauma, sometimes both. It's a harder hypothesis to grasp because it requires thinking beyond nuts and bolts spacecraft. But quantum physics and multidimensional theories in science, like the idea of a multiverse or dimensions beyond the 3D we know, make it at least plausible that other forms of intelligent life could exist in parallel with our reality. As one Reddit summary quipped, Keel and Valet suggested these entities inhabit a world alongside ours, slipping in and out, ultra-terrestrials rather than extraterrestrials. If that's true, the Greys might have been here all along, appearing in whatever guise we expect, ancient demons, modern ETs, etc. It's a heady idea and it implies the answer to where are they from could be right here, just out of reach. Another simulation, or sorry, another hypothesis is their simulation or thought forms. Pushing the envelope fully, some speculate the Greys could be part of a simulated universe or constructs of consciousness. If reality is a simulation, a hypothesis some technologists and philosophers seriously consider, perhaps the aliens are like programmed entities that are introduced as a test or plot within the simulation. In other words, the Greys could be closer to characters in a video game inserted to see how we react or to guide the human story. This overlaps a bit with ultra-terrestrials in the sense of not being physical in our sense. Another variant is that the Greys could be tulpas or thought forms, essentially manifested by our collective consciousness. Some paranormal theorists suggest that by focusing cultural energy on the idea of aliens, we may actually conjure them into existence in some way. This is far outside traditional science, but is it? Right? We all know about the double slit experiment, right? But it's an idea encountered in fringe discussions. There's also the notion that Greys are manifestations of a universal unconscious. Carl Jung wrote about UFOs as modern myths, possibly emanating from the psyche. If so, the Greys could be an archetype we have brought to life through belief. Such theories are hard to test, and skeptics would say the lack of evidence for physical aliens perhaps indicates it's all psychological anyway. However, interestingly, some UFO cases behave almost like shared dreams or staged plays, which makes a bit more sense if some external intelligence, a simulator or a collective mind, is orchestrating it. It could also align with why their appearance is so conveniently archetypal. Big head equals intelligence, big eyes equals observation, small body equals weak, big tech equals high mental power, almost a symbolic almost a symbolic representation of mind over matter. Jacques Vallée once commented that UFO phenomenon might be a control system, not to control spacecraft, but to control our beliefs, essentially a mechanism to evolve how humans think about greater realities. If the Greys are part of that mechanism, their origin might be something abstract, like the interface between the human mind and the unknown. Fascinating, but admittedly very speculative. Given all these options, where does the truth lie? Are the Greys literally flying here from Zeta Reticuli in metal ships, or popping in from hyperspace, or emerging from our future to our collective id, or our collective id? Different experts champion different answers, but no single theory yet accounts for all aspects of the phenomenon. We might be dealing with a mix of truths. For instance, some Greys are ET biological beings, while others are time travelers. The latter could even explain how they got here so fast, skipping through time instead of space. Or maybe the Greys themselves are confused about their own origins. If they are clones created long ago, they might have myths of their own beginnings. One can't help but recall Whitley Strieber's concession. I don't know what they are. Visitors is the best word because they are here and they are real. But whether they come from outer space, inner space, or someplace in between, I have no idea. The humility is important. As we conclude, it's clear the Greys defy easy classification. Their enigma forces us to consider possibilities at the edge of science and consciousness. Perhaps one day we'll get a definitive answer, an open landing, a clear communication. But for now, We assemble clues and debate theories. So, in conclusion, the story of the Greys is a mirror held up to humanity's hopes and fears of the unknown. Are these encounters truly happening in the physical world, or are they complex psychological or interdimensional events? The historical emergence of the Greys shows how an idea can move from fiction to sincere belief, from Wells' imagination to the Hill's nightmare, to Communion's reflection, to our ongoing government UFO inquiries. Along the way, the image of the Greys has become iconic. Wide, black eyes gazing out from a pale face, at once inscrutable, yet mesmerizing. Those eyes have peered at us from countless book covers, movie screens, and purported close encounters, always beckoning the question, what lies behind them? We've heard from ordinary people who recount extraordinary experiences, often at great personal cost, sticking to the conviction that something happened to me, something not of this world. We've seen researchers struggle to map the contours of a phenomenon that doesn't fit neatly into our reality, and sometimes arriving at radically different conclusions. We've considered that the Greys might be saviors, invaders, experimenters, teachers, or even us in disguise, and realized that none of these labels quite capture the full picture. Perhaps the Greys intentionally elude a single definition. If they are advanced intelligences, maybe they know that remaining ambiguous gives them freedom to operate and influence. Or as some experiencers think, maybe they're gently preparing us, step by step, to accept a truth our society isn't prepared for. In the 1960s, the idea of alien abduction was absurd and terrifying. Now in the 2020s, polls show a surprisingly large number of people would not be shocked if alien life was confirmed. In some subtle way, the Greys have already altered our collective consciousness. We entertain possibilities we once denied. And what if the Greys are purely a human creation? A modern folklore born of Cold War anxieties and sleep paralysis, amplified by media. Even then, their cultural impact is real. They become the archetype of the alien, a role once filled by little green men, now firmly held by the little gray beings. Jung might say the Greys symbolize something deep in our psyche, maybe our fear of dehumanization in a technological age, big head, no emotions, or the hope that higher intelligence might guide us, big eyes watching over. In that sense, whether or not actual Greys exist, they matter because we made them matter. As we wrap up this journey through the lore and the theories, let's remember some key takeaways. The Greys first emerged into public awareness through mid-20th century UFO cases, especially the 1961 Benny and Barney Hill abduction, which set the template: short gray-skinned beings, big heads, eyes, medical exams, memory loss. This image was reinforced by later accounts and became widespread in pop culture by the 1980s, thanks in part to Strieber's Communion and portrayals in films. Abduction reports over decades have built a detailed, eerily consistent portrait of the Greys' appearance, behavior, and technology. While skeptics attribute this to cultural contamination or sleep phenomena, the similarity across disparate witnesses is notable. Many describe frail-bodied, large-headed beings with powerful telepathic abilities performing reproductive and physiological experiments on unwitting human captives. The government cover-up angle adds another layer. Documents like MJ-12 and whistleblowers like David Grush suggest some officials believe or know that non-human intelligences, presumably the same as the Greys, have visited and even crashed on Earth. However, Official confirmation is lacking, and misinformation muddies the waters. Conspiracy tales like the Dulce Bay story, while almost certainly unfounded, have nevertheless contributed to the Greys' ominous reputation with underground wars and cruel experimentation. Leading researchers offer divergent interpretations. Hopkins and Jacobs see a concrete alien agenda centered on genetics and potentially domination. Mack and Strieber see a phenomenon that challenges reality and can transfer human consciousness, possibly for our own evolution. These views aren't mutually exclusive. Perhaps the truth has elements of them all, but they illustrate the ongoing debate. Are the Greys villains, heroes, or something beyond such terms? Motives remain speculative. The hybrid program evidence is strong, implying a need for human genes or reproductive material, possibly to propagate their kind or create a new one. Other possible motives include studying us as we'd study animals, using us as resources, biological or even spiritual, or guiding, controlling us in subtler ways. Different encounters give us conflicting vibes. Some feel utterly exploited, others feel enlightened. It's possible the Greys' agenda is so alien that it encompasses things we categorize separately. Origin theories span a wide spectrum. They could be extraterrestrials from a star system like Zeta Reticuli, the straightforward ET hypothesis backed by the initial star map lore. They could be future human time travelers, explaining their human-like form and genetic interest in us. They might be ultra-terrestrial spirits that have always been here, wearing a new mask of space aliens in modern times. Or even AI constructs or avatars, rather than a natural species. Each theory has its pros and cons, and none can be ruled out given the data's ambiguity. Perhaps they are a combination. Aliens who have mastered time or interdimensional travel, effectively making all these distinctions moot. In a way, the Greys force us to widen our frame of reference. If even one abduction case is true as described, our understanding of physics, biology, and society would be turned upside down. That's why the topic meets so much resistance. It's paradigm shattering. As John Mack often said, the UFO Grey phenomenon invites us to re-examine the nature of reality. Whether you lean towards skepticism or belief, it's undeniable that thousands of sincere people are claiming these experiences. The Greys therefore challenge us to deal with the unknown in a serious way. For now, the Greys remain elusive. They haven't landed on the White House lawn, demanding our planet, nor have they offered us a seat in some galactic federation. Instead, they lurk at the edges of our experience, in dark bedrooms at 3 a.m., on lonesome highways, in fuzzy memories and hypnotic regression sessions, in leaked tales from secret committees. They inhabit a strange twilight between the real and the imaginary, the physical and the psychological. And maybe that's exactly where they want to stay. As we conclude, we're left with a narrative that is unresolved, appropriately perhaps, for such an enigmatic subject. We started with early sightings and stories that birthed the idea of the Greys, moved through terrifying abduction encounters and alleged secret dealings, heard researchers argue their theories, and finally speculated on cosmic possibilities. This narrative arc, from emergence to mystery to attempted explanation, mirrors the journey many who delve into UFOs go through. We end, as they do, with more questions than answers. Will we ever get definitive proof of who the Greys are? Is disclosure around the corner, or will the secret keep slipping through our fingers? And if the opportunity for communion arises, are we prepared for what we might learn, or for how it might change us? One abductee, upon regaining some memories, expressed both fear and a strange affinity, saying, "We're forever linked now, aren't we?" That might sum it up. If the Greys are here, then like it or not, our fates are intertwined. In understanding them, whatever they may be, we might also better understand ourselves and our place in the cosmos. Thank you for listening to this exploration of the Greys. Stay curious, keep watching the skies, and perhaps your bedroom at night. And join us next time as we probe another fascinating mystery. As the saying goes, we are not alone, but who we and they truly are remains the greatest question of all. All right, that's all I got. I was worried we weren't going to get through it, but we got through it a little bit faster than I expected. So, all right, let's just go through then. Oh man, that's dizzy. I'm dizzy after going through all that. I just got to get something to drink. By the way, if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, I'd cost you nothing. I'd very much appreciate it, especially as my audience knows. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough gig. And there are a lot of channels who've just started from nowhere and are already approaching my subscriber rate, having done 25 videos and no work. So that's super frustrating for me. All right. Here we go. Yeah, our senses see the equivalent of reading a paragraph in a 1,000-page book and try reporting back what the plot of the story is. Fair, J. Paul. What's a popular show? This show? Say more, Jay. I appreciate that, Terrence. Terrence is saying great show, Sean. Nice. Fast Mama Jamma is saying I got a new CPU this week. It does AI queries super fast. Terrence Willis is saying if there's multiple types of Greys, couldn't they have multiple different intentions? Absolutely. That is definitely a possibility. J. Paul is saying when a reptilian is reporting an abduction with Greys, almost always the reptile is the boss, 100%. Okay, Skibo is writing through a series of coordinate remote viewings conducted in 2012. It was found that Greys have a galaxy-wide reputation for colonization. Yep, as above, so below. Indeed. Okay. Yep, Skibo is saying also the taller ones are much older than the shorter ones. Jay's writing the Greys are definitely parasitic. Terrace Willis is just saying, what if they don't have any intentions and just do what they want because they can? That's possible. All right, J. Paul's writing, if you master time and space travel, really no need to conquer a place like Earth, in my opinion. I think they use it, observe it, tinker with it, just like we do a nature preserve or animal sanctuary or farm. Skibo is writing, they are a hive mind group who are only concerned with survival and growth of their numbers. They do not negotiate. It's very likely we've already lost access to one major technology in the future due to their mining and moving of materials and water off world. Interesting. All right, Jesse Roberts is writing, was the Ariel School sighting considered to be the Greys? Yes, definitely was. Terrence Willis is writing, as soon as government knew they existed, they tried to nuke them out of the sky. The question is why? Yeah, well, because they represented a threat. Whether or not they had evidence of it, whether they represented a threat, who knows? J. Paul is saying genetic manipulation, just like we do to animals. Note, Lasto said, note, Zeta Reticuli has no known planets. That's could very well be true. I mean, they're only 39 light years away. So, and one of the last planets we just discovered was like 39 light years away. So it just depends if I can't verify that at Lasto, but we certainly could see it with the Webb telescope. All right, 78 Leadhead is writing small grays could be AI representations of certain tall grays like AI helpers. All right, Tans Willis says people often wonder where they come from, but never ask where we come from. Why is that? Interesting. 78 Leadhead writes, I've heard two unrelated hospice nurses say that every child in there sees grays. Adults don't. That's weird. Skibo, they are here and their numbers are definitely increasing. Fred writes, the way to rule out if they're from the future is making RFK a dictator to ensure all humans are jacked and tan in the future. Indeed. 78 Leadhead is writing, Strieber has very interesting theories concerning them. Terrace Willis says, does it seem like disclosure and AI are racing toward us on parallel tracks? Yeah, well, no, actually. Disclosure is not racing toward us at all. But AI is racing, is what's going to provide disclosure because the government's not. So Third Royal Guard wrote, I saw a gray, terrible experience, definitely not human, big black eyes. Fascinating. 78 Leadhead is writing, Shauna's very interesting theory that all of us get visited, but only some remember. Or maybe most of us. I don't know if it's all, but it's possible. Okay, Scott Ian is writing, maybe they don't breathe at all. Perhaps they process ether or something. And then Jay Nichols is writing, Nicholas is writing, allegedly the Greys have video evidence of dinosaurs on Earth. Terrence Willis is saying, I've never heard of a Grey eating or drinking anything or even breathing. There have been reports of them absorbing nutrients through their skin. All right, so 78 Leadhead is saying, I think the government factions that have dealt with them are in trouble and they're trying to get out in front of something. Yeah, clearly. They're trying to get out in front of the, what's the word for it? In front of the reprisals. Skibo, the group that's tasked with information, the government isn't interested in disclosure as a thing, as it makes them look worse than they already are. There have been a number of dots that I think I agree with you, Skibo. I have connected recently enough, however. Yeah, I think that's right. I think disclosure would be a disaster because you'd have people would bring out the guillotine, and deservedly so. Yeah, they could be tulpas or egregores. It's possible. 78 Leadhead is writing, they are egregores, the tall ones. It could be as well. Yeah, that's fair. 78 Leadhead is there. Too secretive to be evolution proponents, honestly, or propellants. JB writes, they came into cartoon and TV scene in the 1950s, so they came into our subconscious, giving the egregores more of a presence in our subconscious. It could be. Yeah, 78 Leadheads. I just pray the wasp insectoids aren't real. That would be terrifying. And 78 Leadhead also writes, I highly doubt we created them. Skibos say, I'm reasonably sure the only thing worse than the Greys are the mantas. Mantas or mantids? 78 Leadhead is writing, I've heard the mantids are freaky looking, but not bad. He continues, I've been extremely kind to mantises my whole life. I hope it helps. Okay, Skibo started. According to the abducted, By them, they are by far the most aggressive of the hive-minded types. 78 Leadhead is saying AI still can't come to terms that they're real. 78 Leadhead also is saying to Skibo, I've heard good or neutral experiences too, but who knows? It might be to propagate our kind, but they know something's coming. Skiba is saying either way, 20 years ago, they were already saying was between 7 to 9 different species staying here with us. The Greys are just one of them now. This cannot be good for us. It could be. Who knows? 78 Lead is, I don't know yet, but some of it probably isn't great. It's got the IC rattled, but they needed rattled. Skiba, IC means intelligence community. Yeah, you got it. Oh, I appreciate that. I don't even know what the numbers are looking like right now because I've been focused on getting through the comments. Yeah, seriously, hit the like button and subscribe, people. Please. Oh, nice. Yeah, Dr. Jacobs. He's still alive, by the way. He just doesn't do interviews. All right, so Skiba's writing, I'm afraid as far as the government group that's responsible for this, they are, of course, associated with the CIA. Yeah, thank you, 78 Leadhead. He writes this show should be up there with the best. Yeah, but I don't know what the deal is. Mommy and daddy aren't astronauts, so I can't, you know, record 26 low quality episodes with bad thumbnails and get 12,000 subscribers in a week. So, um, like some other people. So Jesse Roberts wrote, definitely felt like I had a close call with an abduction last week. Woke up at 3 a.m. Al hooting, felt a presence, saw a shadow person, remembered a vague dream of mind being manipulated, uncomfortable. Interesting. Okay, the Thompson Research Group. I never heard of the Thompson Research Group. Oh, the little gnomes, the dark blue creatures. Yeah, that's yeah. Politicians aren't. Can tell us anything. Terrence Willis is saying, "What is going to happen when people find out the government has been lying about them the whole time?" Great show, always. Thank you, Terrence. I mean, they've already been. They lied during the pandemic, right? And they told some really bad lies and forced people to do some really life altering and negative things. And I'm not going to say anything more than that because I'm sure there's a bunch of trigger words in there, but you know where that's going. Hey, Jalal, good to see you. Oh, he's in hospice now? Yikes. Yeah, Drew wrote that Dr. Jacobs is in hospice now. That's not great. That's a tough question. Terrence Willis wrote, Sean, what 2 questions would you ask the gatekeepers to get us the truth? Um, it's a great question. I mean, I would want to know what is interacting with us, right? Because you have to establish if it's interdimensional, uh, ET, ultra terrestrial, etc. And how long have we had official contact with them, whatever they are? Yep, AGI is our only hope. Because it's certainly not our government. Oh wow, I got through all the questions. 19 minutes left to go. Hit like and subscribe, please. Good Lord. I've been slaving at this. This is the beginning of my, I'm a third of the way No, not even. I'm almost halfway through. Almost 5/12 of the way through my fourth year of this, and I still haven't reached 50,000 or 100,000 subscribers. I mean, it is just brutal. It is. I'm putting out 2 episodes a week and at least one live stream a week, and it's just brutal. Yeah, they probably do, and that's what pisses me off. Sorry, so Skibo is writing, and they do have those answers to be sure, and that's what pisses me off. They've probably known for a long time, and they're just denying the fundamental nature of reality to the citizenry. Thank you, brother. Yeah, yeah. I wish. I wish. If I had 5,000 subs, I could probably just you know I could chill out and focus on this 100% of the time instead of you know slaving away at a bunch of other things that I have to do to earn money. Yeah, I believe that, Jalea. Wow. So Skibo is saying myself as well. I've been looking for 38 years after this topic now. Soulite US Expat is saying John Vivianco is his team remote viewed to see if this gnome that suddenly appears in a video taken in Mexico while boys playing with the soccer ball. A real data said yes, interdimensional Fae. Thank you, Justin. Yeah, he's been following since Preston. Preston I interviewed early on. Yeah, we all are. We're all being. I'm Cole is writing. You're being lied to, mind controlled, and poisoned. Yeah. Uh, Terrence Willis, do you think they have hidden entire branches of physics, science, and math from us? Well, they have. There's an interview that Mark Andreessen, who runs Andreessen Horowitz with Ben Horowitz, they were having a meeting at the White House about AI, and they were saying that if you're going to classify things, it should be at the application level, not at the level of the basic mathematics. And because he said you can't classify entire branches of mathematics, and they said, well, we've classified entire branches of physics, so we can and we will. So they absolutely have done that. Okay. Hey, Miss Tammy, good to see you. Yeah, yeah. The government is not here to protect the people. The government is here to protect itself. Right? It's there to enhance its own survival. And that's it. That's all it does. That is the fundamental purpose of government. All right, I'm just trying to see how the stream's doing okay. It's doing okay. I think this is a popular topic, though, so. All right. Okay, so Skibo's writing, I don't think so. Physics hasn't done a damn thing since Einstein's relatively 50 years of spinning their wheels with string. Well, I think that's the point. I think the areas where that could be potentially fruitful have been classified. So they just use string theory to just waste people's time and prevent them from making fundamental breakthroughs in other more promising areas of physics. Maybe in the distant, far future, string theory may be useful in some way, but right now it seems useless to me. But I am no expert on that, clearly. Dr. Joe Gallenberger, who works. Oh, he just. Yeah, maybe I should look him up. So Solite at US Expat is writing, what about interviewing Dr. Joe Gallenberger, who works at the Monroe Institute? He's an expert on manifestation using peak energy. He has some very interesting stories to tell. I'll look into that. That actually looks pretty interesting. Drew is writing, it comes to mind that these people have infiltrated all governments in sensitive positions and positions of power to stop politically any activity that may produce a result that could cause discovery. Yeah, I could see that. Yep. Plenty. Yep. You're talking about string theory, Skibo. Skibo writes, true enough, plenty of great minds were distracted with that one. Interesting. So Terrence Willis says, last question. What do you think it will take for alien reality to finally break into the public, besides an alien ship with beings, of course? I think it would require NHI to disclose, or for people to just, or for AI to become sentient, and AI just, enough people ask for it to just tells people the truth. Yeah, seriously, Justin S. is writing the X Files is more of a reality documentary than a science fiction show. Yeah, true that. So this is Dr. Joe Gallenberg. Gallen, what is it? Yeah, Gallenberger. One story is where they had dice levitating in front of him using peak energy. A story of a colleague from the Monroe Institute who drove her car through a fog, like literally through it, no damage. Oh, through a log, like literally through it, no damage. Yikes. Oh, and what can we as the resistance do to help you get the truth out? I mean, it's highly dangerous. And in fact, I just did an episode with uh, Nathaniel Gillis on why it's highly dangerous, in his opinion. But I think like the whole CE5 or human initiated contact events, but you do it at your own risk. And then just try to notice the world around you, and try to become more aware and pay attention to your dreams. That's the other thing you can do. Okay. Drew is writing, ran out of character. That was a Pat Price quote. I think you read on a stream, yeah, a while back. We will never get disclosure. NHI are in control. Not people. Government gets too much credit. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, thank you, Skibo. Skibo writes, fascinating show tonight. Thank you. Thanks much, Sean. Take care. I appreciate that, Skibo. Oh, wow. Solite US Expat is saying, I have Dr. Gallenberger's home course on manifesting. In 2000, people using the gateway tapes didn't get wet when it rained. A lady that practiced saying Om for 30 minutes changed into light particles. What? And then changed back to herself. What the hell? Yeah, it could be a Trojan horse, but you know what? Our government's not helping us. So if that's the risk, I'm willing to take the risk because government's not protecting us. Hey, thank you very much, JB. I appreciate you. Thank you for the uh super sticker. Uh it just says let's get a few episodes with Museum of Tarot. All right, I'll take a look. Thank you. CE5 is a kindergarten trick to keep you occupied without any actual results. It's controlled disclosure. Fair. Yeah, I've tried it 3 times and nothing's happened as far as I know. Yeah, we can keep trying though. We can keep trying. Solite US expat writes, Dr. Gallenberger also has stories of hearing angelic singing while at the casino. Particles of light. Dr. Gallenberger also is starting to see through objects with PK energy. Yeah, Justin S. is writing, government's job is to cause more problems to solve. I think that's totally fair. Totally fair. Yeah. All right. What else? What else are we talking about? See how we're doing on X. Oh, X is very quiet. Very quiet on X. That's okay. That's okay. He's at the Monroe Institute, so he must be. Who, me? Yeah, believe me, I've needed a break for like 20 years. But the problem is I'm putting so much effort into this thing and it's just not yielding the kind of results that the level of effort that I put into it. And I don't know why. It is what it is. I'm not trying to complain. It just pisses me off when I see like people start a channel 3 months ago and almost have the same number of subscribers. Like that pisses me off. Like that really, really enrages me. But it is what it is, you know. I just have to. I mean, in that case, I had to produce 30 times the number of episodes that they did to get the same result over, you know, like 30 times the time span. Hmm. Well, the remote viewing stuff came out in the mid '90s with the release of Psychic Warrior. That's been out for a while. What else do people want to talk about? I got like 6 minutes left, but I'm tired. I'm gassed right now. I am totally gassed. I just finished like 2 episodes this weekend, and they're all uploaded. I haven't uploaded them on Spotify yet, but Spotify actually has a more natural growth curve. Uh, YouTube has like something that looks like it's deliberately retarded, and I don't mean like to retard growth. Like it's like deliberately suppressed. Like the math just doesn't make sense. Yeah. Oh yeah. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. I called my mother today, so we're good. Yep. Oh, really? New accounts with huge follower account numbers are buying followers? But YouTube usually detects that stuff. Maybe it flies on Twitter, but on YouTube they detect that stuff, or at least they detect a lot of it. Maybe Jay, but like I'm like so like I haven't had a break in I don't know how long because I took a full-time job almost a year ago. So I don't like it's just been nonstop work. I don't like have a chance to breathe anymore. Yeah, yeah, or just put a woman's face. Literally just put an attractive woman's face on a thumbnail. I might actually test that because it's so ridiculous, but it might work. Yeah, I hope so, Terrence. But like I said, my last 3 months have been views have been sequentially declining. Yeah, exactly. You have been saying show rules from day one. All right, Jay. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Oh man. Oh, what else? What else are we doing? Any other questions folks have about the Grays? All that good stuff. Although I think the thumbnail for this episode was pretty good. I thought it was good. Yeah, he's got some stuff he's taking care of, but we were gonna. I'm like, he actually recommended that I get him and Lynn Buchanan on another episode, and Lynn Buchanan's game. Like he's already, but I think Morehouse is like dealing with some stuff. But I think after the 16th, I'll probably be able to schedule something with him. I got Whitley Strieber in the hopper, kind of 2 weeks from now, just interviewing him. And then there's another contactee that Whitley Strieber just interviewed that I'm going to talk to next weekend. So I'm slowly getting some new guests, which is good. I saw a guy naked with a guitar for his tarot channel, and we all started calling it Thirst Trap Tarot. And he said, whatever works. Oh boy. It should have maybe jumped on the satellite crashing and Earth destruction, maybe? I don't know, maybe. Oh, Matt Brown? Um, yeah, I talked to somebody in that community, let's just say, and just leave it at that. And they routinely have exercises that have like outlandish propositions. So it very well could have just been they just had an exercise where they talked about like a craft crash and how would you manage it and stuff like that, but it's not real. Also, apparently, Immaculate Constellation is it's a code name, but it's like a code name for something that's pretty anodyne. It's not what they're alleging it to be. That's all I know. I didn't want to ask more because I think that's enough. So this Immaculate Constellation thing is not. It's like a nothing burger. Oh, Matt Brown is just the guy who leaked Immaculate Constellation. So I believe that he saw what he saw, but I don't think it was anything that was, you know, major. I think it's a nothing burger. Huh. Jalay Jalal saying Russia sent 30 to Venus, 21 managed to land or hit atmosphere, according to Russians. The rest are question mark. One about the crash. Interesting. Oh yeah, then India and Pakistan are at war. I don't know if there's a ceasefire or not, but anyway, I'm exhausted, folks, and we're at the end of today's episode. So thank you all for following. Please like, please subscribe. I appreciate you. Thank you for sticking with me this long. I'm getting tired. I'm hoping this whole effort will pay off. I think at the very beginning I'd give it 5 years, right? So we're at the beginning of year 4. If I don't have 100,000 subscribers by year 5, I'm done. Like I'm done. This is too much work for not enough result. So hopefully that'll happen, but um we'll see. We'll see. All right. Well, good night everyone. Thank you, Jesse, and have a great rest of your week. Yeah, I seriously need a break, but I'm not gonna get one for a while. Unless I die sometime in the next 2 years, which uh, again, I'm not I'm not suicidal. I just wanna say that. I'm not suicidal. Yeah, you know what? That would be wonderful if I had 100K before 2025 ends. So pray for me, maybe, but like I would have to have some banger episode that just went viral for that to happen. So anyway, all right. Thank you all, and have a great night.